Welcome to the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. We talk a lot about cybersecurity on this podcast. 2022 saw the issue hit the headlines, led by high-profile attacks on Optus and Medibank, and the effects are long-lasting. A recent report suggested Optus's brand valuation has fallen by about $1.2 billion as a result of the attack. Even the Australian Communications and Media Authority has warned that scammers are still impersonating the telco in emails 4 months after the breach. It's no surprise that companies of all sizes are taking the threat very, very seriously. Charlie Hales is the Asia Pacific Managing Director at Waterstons, a UK-based tech company. Charlie, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
So did 2022, is that the year that people sat up and took notice of cyber risk more than ever before, do you think?
Yeah, here in Australia, absolutely. Obviously, the attacks that happened made people sort of sit up and take note. There had been a few companies that were doing well before that, but it's definitely been a turn in the tide, should we say.
So, explain what it was like before and then what it's like what you've seen the business community do.
Yeah, so historically, people were talking about it. They were wondering if they needed to worry about it, if I put it that way. And obviously, everyone was saying, yes, it's something they need to do, but it was a bit of case of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, they hadn't seen the breach. They hadn't seen the implications of getting a big breach a lot. It had happened in some industries, but not too many yet here in Australia. And then what happened is, obviously, I say overnight, but over a couple of weeks, there were some fairly big breaches, and they realised how detrimental it can be for companies, not just from a monetary factor, but from a reputation point of view. And they've realised actually it's a board problem. It's not just for their IT team to worry about it anymore. And they've decided, actually, yes, we need to do something about this. It's on the board agenda. And we really need to make sure we're understanding the risks to our business and putting the right protections in place. It is a journey. It's not something that they're going to all fix overnight, but people are definitely starting to get on that journey, shall we say.
Okay, so Waterstons, what role do you play in this ecosystem?
Yeah, so we do anything from your cyber strategy, at that board level, through to managing your cyber estate and cyber security. So we've got something called a SOC, which is an operations center, basically managing the security of an organization. But the first thing that we usually do with any clients is a consulting engagement, looking at your business, looking at the risks from a cyber point of view that are relevant for your business, because it's very different, for example, for a university. It's the student data they need to protect, whereas a manufacturing organisation needs to protect their production line. It's what's really important to your business, and then making sure that that's protected in the right way. But also, it's not just from a technology point of view, which is where companies have historically got it wrong. They've thought, I can install this big piece of tech and then everything's going to be fine. It's people, process, and technology. Sometimes people can be your biggest vulnerability. We all see those texts that come through, click this link, and then they've given the keys to the kingdom of an organization, and you can have the best security in the world, but someone clicks that link, puts the details in, then it's lets someone in through the back door.
Okay, so what are the biggest challenges? People is obviously one. There was a very big cyber attack, I can't remember this last year or the year before, but it was where a third-party software, which was used by a bunch of organisations around, had been hacked, and so that kind of had nothing to do with people. I suppose I'm trying to get an idea of where are the pain points or the weak spots for most organisations.
It's the people, process, and the technology. So it's making sure you look at all three. Looking at one standalone will not solve the problem for a business. So your people, it's that education for them, and it's making it fun. It's not these just little click through educational pieces that you do. So it's making sure the people are trained, making sure they understand that information. And actually, they really understand that it's important, if something does happen, to shout up as quickly as possible. Not to get into trouble, but so that can be resolved. Then it's the process. A big thing that companies are looking at now is, what do I need to do if we are hacked, or when we're hacked, actually, which can be the case. And then they have a whole process around that of how the company's going to react, and also around data and how that's managed. You'll have seen with the recent breaches, there's been a lot of uproar, for example, with Optus, how long they'd kept some of that data, and they can keep that for years and years. And it's not changed yet, but I'd suggest there's going to be some policies that change around that soon.
Yep.
So it's making sure they've got processes around manage that. And then obviously some good technology in place as well, to protect their data that they've got where it's important, not around everything.
I'm sure the management of Optus and Medibank wouldn't agree with me, and probably not the shareholders or the customers. But in a sense, it was a really welcome wake-up call for the rest of the business community.
Yes, yeah, I understand why you're saying they wouldn't agree because they've probably had quite a bit of pain from it. But yeah, it's really given the rest of the business community that wake up call. It's made them realise this isn't something I can just think about and push down the road. It's something that I need to prepare for when it is going to happen and make sure that I've got the best provisions in place for when it does.
Stay with me, Charlie. We'll be back in a minute. My guest this morning is Charlie Hales, Asia Pacific Managing Director at Waterstons. So what are the steps people should be taking now, be it a small business like ours, Fear and Greed, or a larger business? How do you become active?
So the biggest thing I'd suggest to any company is at the start of your cyber journey, or even if you've started it but you haven't already done this, is you look at what's appropriate for your business. So as you referenced there, small company is very different to a large company. So for example, for you guys, I'd imagine your podcasts and things like that and your IP are the things that you want to...
Very valuable, Charlie.
Yeah,
Very valuable.
that you want to protect. So it's putting the right provisions in place before they're released around those. After they're released, they're public, in the public agenda anyway, so they don't need to be protected. For bigger companies, depending on what their IP or data is that they want to protect, they need to understand the risks to their business. If this was breached or released or encrypted or whatever attack it is, because there's numerous ways companies can do that, what would that mean to our business and how would we get back up and running quickly whilst protecting our people or clients and data along that way? So that's definitely where I'd start. But the other big thing I'd recommend to all companies is doing user education, no matter what size your company is, teaching them it's okay if something goes wrong. This is, ideal world, you don't click these links. These are things to look out for. These are education. But if you do, you shout up as soon as possible, because if you let us know, we can change passwords. We can make sure that account hasn't been in, et cetera, to make sure the business is protected.
Yeah, okay. So a few things I want to talk about training and whether or not Australia has the right skills available to counter what will be, further attacks on businesses. Do we have the skills at the moment?
So there is a bit of a skill shortage, but there's a lot of companies like ours that can help. What I'd suggest that a lot of companies do, historically, they've made the mistake of thinking this is an IT problem. So they think, actually, our IT teams, they're great. They've put all of the technology in place, so we don't need to worry about it. IT teams are great, but they're technologists. You need to have a cybersecurity specialist to work alongside them to make sure you've got the right protections in for your business. So having that blend of cyber knowledge and technology knowledge can really give you the best protection.
I mean, how much more support does government need to give business to help them through this period? And it's ongoing, not even a period, is it? This is going to go on forever.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely been some good news out recently. There's definitely been more of a focus. It's that balance, isn't it, between the carrot and the stick? They have put some rules in place, the stick, as you'd say, with fines and things for repeat offenders or big data breaches. But I think there's going to be more to come, and I'd welcome that. Putting some things in place, and you'll tell from my accent I'm from the UK, along the lines of GDPR that they've got over there, which is basically how you protect that data, how long you keep it, what you can and can't do with it. I think there's a lot they can learn from overseas, and putting a few of those practices in place, I think will be good. While businesses might not see that as good initially, because it's work they need to do, it's going to protect them in the long run. And it doesn't need to be difficult either. These practices, they can be put in place quite easily as long as you know what you're doing.
Okay. I mean, how ready are, where does Australia compare to the rest of the world in terms of readiness for cyber attacks?
Being honest, again, where I'm from, the UK and Europe are much better prepared. But they suffered with these attacks years ago, and I think that's why they're ahead of the curve. They put lots of practices in place. They put new laws in place and things like that. America's got a lot of initiatives in place as well, and how they protect their data. It's very different. They do have all kinds of different federal rules over there, so I wouldn't necessarily say it's the best. But again, they've had cyber hacks for a long time. I think Australia's been lucky in a way to not have some of these big cyber breaches before now, hence people haven't worried about it as much. But the good news is, again, as you said earlier, not maybe for Optus and Medibank, but that businesses are looking at it now and getting the right protection in place to make sure they are covered for the future.
Okay. A couple of other things just quickly, Charlie. I know like Waterstons has done a lot of work on smart building technology. Just explain that.
Yeah, so we have a lot of partners that we work with, and we've done a great initiative that's going to be coming out end of February. We're doing a bit of an event in March with our partners Kundal, and it's looking at how smart technology in buildings and obviously what you need to put in place around that from a cyber point of view. And it's looking at new buildings, but also retrofitting buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll see buildings are getting smarter all the time at the moment, and it's making sure that the right practices are put in place from the start, and it doesn't turn into one of those movies that you've seen on the telly where the hackers get into the buildings and lock everything down and things like that.
Yeah, okay. And then the other one I just want to mention is about attracting more women into cybersecurity. Now, I've got to admit, I actually have an interest in a cyber training company, and that cyber training company has done very well in the last few months because of what's going on. But most of the people that come to us to get trained are male. It's really hard to find female participants.
It is, yeah. And I think it's something we need to look at. Just saying we need more women in cyber isn't going to fix the problem. It's looking at getting them interested at an earlier age. I have been interested in cyber and tech for as long as I can remember. A long time ago, not longer than I'd like to admit, at university and everything. I was interested. So there was just something in me that really made me follow this path. And luckily, I had a lot of good people supporting it because I was the only woman for a long time. But I think it's getting into the schools, getting into the universities, getting people interested, making sure that women and actually all diversities realise that there's a place for them. And even if they haven't got the amazing technical skills, just having some amazing organisational skills can be great in a crisis when you're dealing with a cyber threat. So there are other avenues that people can get into this. That's something everyone should think about.
Charlie, thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you for having me.
That's Charlie Hales, Asia Pacific Managing Director at Waterstons. This is the Fear and Greed Daily Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.